Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of Sustainable Stace. I hope your day is going great. It's about to get better because today we're focusing on apple harvest, preserving apples specifically, with a strong focus on drying or dehydrating your apples, plus a few other bonus pieces of content related to apples. So let's get into it.
I'm Stacy Taves. For me, healthy food and sustainability are totally connected. You can grow it yourself. Nature is generous.
I've heard it said that the best time to plant an apple tree, or any tree for that matter, was 20 or 30 years ago. But the second best possible time is today. Absolutely, when you've got a tree on your side, there's just so much good that goes on, and apple trees are an incredible example of that. Just to let you know kind of where we're at in the midst of harvesting apples where we live, Western Canada, the province of British Columbia. We actually live on Vancouver Island. It's that season of the year where fall is full and vibrant. The harvest is plentiful. The colors of the leaves on the deciduous trees are turning. I've just finished harvesting about 1,000 head of garlic, getting that prepped for sale, and planting will probably be in about a month when first frost hits, which where we live is around middle of October. All our pears are harvested, all our plums are harvested, and because this area was planted with all the same apple trees before we ever lived here, they all ripen in the same window of time. So maybe the south exposure of the tree will be riper a little quicker than the north exposure, but basically they're all ready at once. So we pick them all at once, many of them get juiced, and then we go a few different ways with the preservation. If you want to just have fresh apples last the longest, you can try letting them hang on the tree, but they might over-ripen and get too soft or pulpy. You don't really want to eat them, but I try the north side of the tree. I'll leave them sit a little bit longer. Then the other things I try to do, I've tried this with some success, is that obviously fruit ripens quicker if it's exposed more to oxygen and light. So if you bury these old school like pioneers did hundreds of years ago in a box of sawdust, tightly packed sawdust, that can actually help extend the preservation time without throwing a bunch of energy at it. I think Murphy's going to come visit. Oh, hi Murphy. When I only had 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, he was my special guest. If you ever want to check out my special celebrity guest when I had 1,000 subscribers, this was Murphy, who was a little kitten appearing or debuting in that. I could only have a budget for a kitten at that time. So anyway, we've got all these apples ready at once. So one of the things I love to do is applesauce, because these apples actually don't stay very hard or firm when you cook them. They mush. So go with your strengths. Applesauce is easy. All I do is peel them and core them and throw them in a pot and boil them down. Applesauce freezes really simply in plastic bags or plastic containers. I use it often in muffins or in loaves of things where it asks for oil or butter or other things like that, because it keeps it soft and moist. Wonderful baking product, applesauce. I freeze some apples, but I find they don't freeze super well. So the big thing, the focus for today, is dehydration or drying apples. And I obviously want to get my most nicely large, uniform size apples. This would be a great candidate. And then I just get into it and I'll show you what I do for that. So I have a dehydrator. The brand is called Nesco. I'll show it to you later. And it has trays that stack like this, and the air travels up through this and circulates and moves around. I actually have a total of 8 trays for my dryer. So yeah, it's not a super efficient way for Space to put round circles of apples onto here, but that's what I do, and they dehydrate beautifully. So I'm prepping them for this type of a tray. So I take my most uniform size apples, like the one I picked, and I just have 2 different tools to prep. I have a little tool that I press for coring, and a knife. And generally, if this works right and you can line up your pressure with the core, then when you go like this, you can pull it out, you get your perfect cored apple, and that just pops out for composting or feeding to your chickens. And then you've got this apple with a hole. I generally just find it's expendable and worthwhile to cut off the very ends that have the peels, because the peels don't do great in the dryer. I do leave the peel on, but I'm just taking that end off. And then the goal is simple. You could use a mandolin or something like that. You just want to get even slices of your apples so that the dehydration is going to be uniform. And basically, once I've got a bunch of slices like that, you don't have to watch me further. That's about the thickness that I do. And obviously that last slice can be the challenging one. So when I've got a bunch of slices like that, they're beautiful to munch on like that, I just start stacking them into the dehydrator, and as uniform as possible. When I get into edges to fill spaces, I'll often just cut them like that to just, fill in spaces where I need to on the dehydrator, fill up the whole tray. The little hint that I will give now and possibly again later, with 8 trays that I have on my dehydrator, which is the most I can stack on and work it well, once or twice while they're dehydrating, I relocate and shuffle the tray location so that the ones that are getting a little more air get moved to the area that has a little less airflow. So that's just what we do for dehydrating apples. Once you follow the directions of your dehydrator and find out what you want, you're just really wanting an apple that is pliable and not brittle. And then it stores for 3 or 4 years, I find, just in a Ziploc bag. You don't have to throw any more energy at it to store it. It's a beautiful way to preserve an apple. Tomorrow's the big day for our family juicing apples. We take them actually to a place that has big, powerful hydraulic stainless steel presses and extracts the most possible juice you can out of an apple. I spent years trying to perfect my own apple juicing, and when I found these guys were able to do it so powerfully and mechanically, I actually found that the powdery, dry pulp left over from my apples was so devoid of flavor and juiciness that even when I was raising pigs, they didn't want to eat it because it was almost like apple flour. So I just get so much more juice from a great, expensive mechanical press where I pay someone that I quit trying to invent it or reinvent the wheel. But harvesting, I've got to get a couple 100 pounds of apples picked today, ready for juicing tomorrow. And if you have a big bucket or a big bin down on the ground, a lot of apples will fall and bruise. And so one of the quick tips I want to offer you is simply having a bowl. When you've got it close to your apples, then when you're going around your tree, you're able to grab the apples without them falling on the ground. And if one does start to fall, you often can catch it at the same time. So that's just a quick little tip that if you're picking apples, whatever size, presumably they're up above you or above your bin, and you can get them a lot quicker that way using a bowl. It'll speed things up and keep the quality of your fruit way higher. Okay, I've set up my dehydrator now, it's running, and I've been filling it with trays, and I realized I didn't tell you the truth. I have way more than 8 trays. I thought I had 8. I think I have 12. But for today, 2, 4, 6, I actually am gonna run 8 today on this. So I'm filling up the last tray. The dehydrator's running. There's basically a base that simply holds the trays, and then the top is the control panel, the handle to lift it, and the motor, and you just program in time and temp. So this is, as I mentioned before, the Nesco brand, so it looks like that, and you just lift this up. It's running right now with the fan. I'm taking my top tray of apples to put on there, and it just nests on there. We're good to go. So I've set it for 4 hours. We'll see how it goes, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll reshuffle at least once while it's running to make sure that the airflow is kind of even, because sometimes it's a bit uneven in different areas, and that's exacerbated or accentuated when you have more and more trays. Then the airflow becomes a little less even throughout. So now we're just going to give it some time and give it some love, and we'll come back and show the finished product. On this channel, as you know, I want to be hopeful and healthy with all the different resources we provide. And so one thing you might want to know is that I'm always keen on organic, sustainable production of everything that we do on our property. And so anything I'm modeling, I'm hoping you can replicate wherever you live. As I've noted, we're on the west coast of Vancouver Island. I try to deal with disease on my apple trees, not when they have apples on them, but most pests that we encounter on our fruit trees, they try to overwinter in the bark or in the kind of knotty spots that are knurled up on these old fruit trees. And so a dormant oil spray is one of the best ways I found to get rid of pests that have tried to overwinter in the bark or the trunk of the tree. And so check out on this channel a DIY dormant oil spray recipe that I make up and apply. And if you try that out, I think you'll have great success with it, as I've had, to get rid of all the little nasty gnarlies you're trying to before your tree has any flowers or fruit on it. So give that a check out, a DIY dormant oil organic spray. Just one more hello from Murphy. He just keeps popping up today in the orchard. He's lonely, I guess. Hi, Murph. Say hi. Meow. It's the end of the day, and it's the moment of truth. I've run the dryer in total for between 4.5 and 5 hours. You saw the thickness of the slices we did. I've just turned the power off so we don't hear the noise of the fan. And once in the middle of that 4.5 to 5 hour stretch, I switched up the locations of the racks. So you can see what those look like right there. And when you grab a piece like this and bend it a bit, it doesn't break or crack, because I don't want apple chips. But there's no moisture in there. If you pinch it, there's no liquid or juice coming out. That's exactly what I wanted. 4.5 to 5 hours work perfectly for that thickness of a slice, and you can see it's even all the way through. 2 things, or 2 points that I want to cover with you. One is discoloration. Dried fruit oxidizes. As soon as oxygen hits ripe fruit, it changes color, and yeah, it usually gets brown. So a lot of people will advise you to dip it in a citrus solution or something that's going to prevent or decrease the discoloration. It's always wet. That discoloration prevention solution is always wet, so you're adding moisture right before you try to dehydrate and take out the moisture. So I don't do it because it's still going to change color a little bit, even with lemon or something else on it. I just, as you saw, slice it and dry it. That's it. I don't do anything. It's the simplest, and it decreases the time of processing and the work, and I'm always about simple, pragmatic ways to do it. And the second and final thing to tell you is storing this. The best way to store this is something airtight. So a Ziploc bag, a sealable bag, or a jar with just a simple lid on the top. Either will work perfectly, but when you go to do it, because this is warm right now, it's been at Fahrenheit 135 degrees for 4.5 to 5 hours. If you took these apple slices right off and put them right in a bag or a jar, the slices would still be cooling, and the warmth coming off of them inside a sealed container will cause condensation, it'll mold, and it'll all be rotting within a week. So just give it 30 minutes or so to cool down, and if it does that and you put it in your bag or jar, this will last for years. I've had dried apples that I've forgotten or lost in the back of the pantry. 4 years later, I take them on a fishing trip or a kayaking trip, and there they are, perfect and ready to go. They're so good with your morning oatmeal. If you like cooking oatmeal with raisins or seeds or nuts like I do, and you add in pieces of dried apple, absolutely beautiful. So you don't just have to eat them on your own, eat them on their own. You can add them into recipes as well. You got her done. Here we are. Thank you everyone for coming along for the ride on preserving the apple harvest. I hope that the tips and tricks from harvesting to how to use applesauce to especially the focus of drying or dehydrating apples has been super beneficial for you. Fallen into that category of hopeful, helpful, and healthy from Sustainable Stace. And if you've been watching this on YouTube, thanks a lot. Please hit that notifications bell and subscribe so I can keep on giving you more great resources. Till next time.